Friends, I welcome you to my channel. I am Taras Berezovets, and today we will talk about the conclusion of the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan, where Putin tried forging an anti-American NATO alliance. All these plans have failed, and today he received another betrayal from his favorite leader, Xi Jinping, who called on Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Indeed, it didn't sound so straightforward. Rather, it sounded, let's say, in a Chinese way. The Russian army has calculated the number of crimes committed by Russian military personnel in the Kursk region. I did not misspeak. It is indeed the Russian military. You will be surprised, and to be honest, I was a bit stunned by the statistics today. Moreover, it was voiced by none other than the Special Forces Commander Akhmat Apit Alaudinov. More commonly known as Lapti Aladina. North Korea has taken hostage the relatives of soldiers sent to war in Ukraine, and NATO and the Pentagon today confirmed the redeployment of North Korean military forces to participate in the war against Ukraine. In fact, this occurred 3 days after the relevant information was made public by the South Korean and Ukrainian intelligence. Finally, Xi Jinping indeed told Putin that it is necessary to stop the escalation in Ukraine. This provision, which was carefully crafted and thoroughly discussed, was included as one of the significant points in the official communiqué following the successful conclusion of the 16th BRICS summit. Notably, point 36 of the comprehensive final declaration is specifically dedicated to the ongoing situation in Ukraine. The United States will provide Ukraine with an additional $20 billion as part of the G7 loan. Finally, while Recep Tayyip Erdogan was in the city of Kazan, he arrived today for an official visit, and a terrorist attack took place at the office of the Defense Company, which is one of the largest military operators in the country of Turkey, Turkish Aerospace, near Ankara. And this is not a coincidence, it is directly related to Erdogan's visit to Russia. Who, perhaps, is behind this? Islamists or Putin himself? We will figure it out, friends, with all possible versions. And believe me, they look more than intriguing. So let's start with the first piece of news. It turns out that there is a Ministry of Internal Affairs in the Kursk region. I was also a bit taken aback by this news today. A total of 187 crimes have been recorded, and pay attention, they were committed not by Ukrainian military forces, but by Russian military forces. This was stated by the deputy head of the main military political directorate of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, the deputy political officer, the commander of the special forces, Akhmat Apit Alaudinov. According to him, to date, Russian military forces have committed 187 crimes only in the Kursk region. Among them, the most common crimes such as murder, rape, and other serious offenses are prevalent. However, he stated that none of these crimes were committed by the fighters of the Akhmat unit. Let's just say that Akhmat leaves no witnesses. Moreover, he explicitly stated that he had indeed heard certain rumors regarding the alleged inappropriate behavior of the Akhmat fighters in the rear areas. The period during which these military crimes were committed by Russian military forces is unknown. Akhmat Apit Alaudinov stated that he arrived in the Kursk region on August 7th. That is, presumably from that moment on, this number of crimes has been recorded somewhere. Amazing, agreeably, the statistics. Considering that Kremlin propagandists are primarily shouting about supposedly mass war crimes committed by Ukrainian forces, however, they have not presented a single piece of evidence. Among these accusations was, specifically in particular, the allegation that they allegedly burned a 14-year-old girl. At the same time, the witness and the author of this hoax were the one and only deputy of the local legislative assembly. Stories about families being killed, residents of entire settlements being shot, and then a concentration camp being created. This is already Masha Zakharova in the territory of Sudzha. In a word, there was an enormous wild amount, but as we see, it's astonishing. Isn't it that Russian military forces committed all these crimes, and even Russian officials are stating this? A striking piece of news, wouldn't you agree? Meanwhile, North Korea, in its traditional manner, as I mentioned, I anticipated how they would combat the increasing cases of desertion among North Korean military personnel. I have already sent 3,000 of my soldiers for military training in Russia, and all their relatives, mind you, have been taken hostage. This was reported to journalists by the Associated Press and Reuters, as reported by the well-respected director of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, according to, it is called NIS. The National Intelligence Service, commonly known as NIS, is the primary intelligence agency of South Korea. In a confidential meeting, Cho Tae-yong, a key government figure, shared this information with two members of the South Korean parliament. This was during a closed session, a private meeting not open to the public. According to South Korean intelligence sources, in North Korea, 7 military personnel dispatched to Russia are being taken to special camps. Rumors are spreading among local residents, causing concern. According to Russian instructors, the North Korean military possesses excellent physical attributes and morale, meaning they have been brainwashed. But they have no understanding of modern warfare methods, particularly drones. Therefore, they were not sent to the front lines, where they would easily become cannon fodder. The head of Ukrainian military intelligence, Kirilo Budanov, points out since they are ideologized and have their brains washed. They can be quite disciplined soldiers. However, if they start to behave otherwise, their military in North Korea may be executed. This is a simple method that is essentially uncomplicated. It is employed by all dictatorial regimes. In order to avoid any cases of desertion, panic, betrayal, self-inflicted wounds, and the like, they simply took their relatives hostage. It's interesting how the Russian authorities haven't thought of this until now. Well, isn't it much simpler? What about that army in Ukraine? About 500,000. Just take all their relatives, put them in concentration camps, chain them up like dogs in a kennel, feed them slop, and if any of your mobilized or military personnel, God forbid, run away and surrender, just take and hang the whole family. Or drown and shoot them, in short. Well, one must learn. If Russia is an ally with North Korea, we need to adopt advanced practices, it seems to me. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal quotes a North Korea specialist from Kookmin University in Seoul named Fedor Turkitsky. However, judging by his name, I haven't looked him up or Googled him. He is probably Russian, likely. So, this North Korea specialist, Fedor Turkitsky, stated that the transfer of North Korean military personnel to Ukraine is extremely risky, as ideology could play a cruel joke on them. They were in a completely isolated, encapsulated system, and now, when they may find themselves in a situation without censorship, they will receive information regardless. It is unavoidable. They will get gadgets from their Russian colleagues in any case. They will start Googling information, and they will be in shock. It turns out that Kim Jong-un's regime has been lying all this time. It turns out that everything is completely different. If some South Korean media look it up, they will start reading the truth. In fact, in a word, all of this is very, very unpredictable. Indeed, in a word, an extremely risky step. The information about the presence of North Korean military personnel was confirmed today by NATO and the Pentagon. Lloyd Austin, who indeed recently visited Kyiv, stated that American authorities, as evidence shows, have evidence that North Korean military personnel are already, in fact, in Ukraine. Quote, "There is evidence that North Korean troops are in Russia. What exactly they are doing remains a matter of speculation. This is what we need to find out. Their intentions are currently unknown. It has been widely reported by the prestigious publication known as the magazine The Wall Street Journal. This was also stated today at a briefing by representatives of the U.S. National Security Council. In response to why Americans do not allow the use of long-range weapons, John Kirby stated that we do not know what North Korean military forces will do. Well, they don't know today according to American intelligence. It turns out that such things can happen. The CIA must know, but they currently have no answers. Well, they should turn to South Korean intelligence. I am sure they already have information, or at least have theories about what they will be doing. In addition to the deployment of 4 brigades of North Korean military personnel, totaling 12,000 people, according to South Korean intelligence, there are special forces units and North Korean pilots who are supposed to operate Russian Su and MiG aircraft. NATO also confirmed the information today in sync with the Pentagon. NATO's official representative, Farah Dalala, stated in response to a request from Deutsche Welle that the Allies confirmed data on the transfer of troops from North Korea to Russia. If these troops are intended for the war in Ukraine, it will signify a significant escalation of the situation with North Korea's support for the illegal war being waged by Russia, and serves as further evidence of Russia's substantial losses on the front. Quotes, as they say, Captain Obvious. And what else could they be intended for if they are located on the territory of Russia? I'm also curious about that. Well, they didn't go there for a vacation. Russia is not a place people vacation, even from North Korea. Believe me, I think that in North Korea the nature and conditions for relaxation, not to mention the overall atmosphere, are probably better than in Russia. That's how it seems to me. And finally, we move on to the BRICS summit, where the day before, Russia was expecting a harsh setback from key allies, primarily from Brazil. South Africa and India categorically refused to turn BRICS into an anti-American bloc, anti-NATO. Well, they just didn't want to. Here, China also refused to engage in any narratives, stories, or games with a new reserve currency. You see, even the yuan did not want to be that way in any way. And lo and behold, Russia warned all guests of the BRICS summit that they would not be able to use their Visa and MasterCard cards. Such things happen on the territory of Russia, therefore, they need to bring cash. But for some reason it's neither yuan nor rupees, but dollars and euros. How is that possible? After all, these currencies are produced in the cursed West, yet it is precisely these currencies that can be exchanged in Russian banks. It turned out to be free. The Russian organizers called for people to come specifically with dollars and euros. You can't use cards, you can't use checkbooks. In a word, welcome to the Stone Age. As they say, welcome to the Stone Age, or, well, returning to it, after all. Xi Jinping stated today, while speaking at the meeting of BRICS leaders, that it is important, based on the principles of preventing the spillover of conflicts, avoiding their spread to third countries, and preventing the escalation of hostilities, as well as refraining from adding fuel to the fire, to promote a swift de-escalation of the situation. China, Brazil, and the countries of the Global South, she stated, have created a group of friends for peace, which aims to unite. Voices in support of peace. Final resolution, we open the poor declaration of the BRICS summit. Point 36 is dedicated to Ukraine. This point states the following. We remind of the national positions on the situation in Ukraine and around it, as outlined in the relevant forums, including the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly. We emphasize that all states must act in accordance with the goals and principles of the UN Charter in all their fullness and interconnectedness. We are pleased to note the relevant proposals for cooperation and good offices aimed at ensuring a peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. And the end of the quote. But it concerns Ukraine. Today, a statement was made that Russia's plan to impose the so-called alternative position of the Global South regarding Russian aggression against Ukraine has suffered yet another failure. The declaration, Ukrainian media showed that BRICS as an organization does not have a unified position on Russian aggression. The aggression of the BRICS summit, which Russia planned to use to divide the world, has once again proven that the global majority remains on the side of Ukraine in its efforts to ensure the establishment of a comprehensive, just, and sustainable peace based on respect for international law and the Charter. In simple terms, translating into an understandable language, in essence, Putin has once again made a miscalculation. Sorry, it's true. Unfortunately, indeed, all of his various attempts to impose his vision and present BRICS as an anti-Western, anti-globalist, anti-NATO organization have ultimately, completely and utterly failed. Since China, I remind myself, primarily sees this bloc as pro-Chinese, which will primarily pursue economic goals. Putin also failed to achieve an increase in the volume of investments from the countries he invited to the BRICS summit and those that are part of this organization. And in Russia, they still remain miserable, begging for money but received nothing. This is how the great strategist masterfully conducted the summit in a remarkable manner, where Russia, as the current chair, hosted the BRICS organization. Well, Putin couldn't secure any money, but the US will provide Ukraine with another loan under the G7 framework, amounting to $20 billion. The amount will be covered by the income from frozen Russian assets and other related financial sources. The total amount is approximately $50 billion. This is a joint aid package from the G7 countries and the European Union. Well, the United States will specifically provide approximately $20 billion from this total package. Of 50, this, I repeat, is only the income part from the frozen Russian assets. They themselves are not transferred to Ukraine. Only the profits are transferred. The profits that are obtained from these frozen funds, which are still held in accounts in Western banks. Besides the USA, one of the largest holders of the package, the most Russian money frozen in Europe, is in Belgium. Yes, not in France, not in Germany, not in Britain, but in Belgium. Belgium is the main holder of Russian shields. And finally, while the BRICS summit was taking place in Turkey today, a major terrorist attack occurred. There were 2 attackers, a man and a woman, and they have been killed. 5 civilians were also killed, and 22 were injured. Nevertheless, this terrorist attack leaves a huge number of questions. You will understand why shortly. Erdogan arrived today, of course, against the backdrop of accusations that Turkey, I remind you, is a member of NATO, and here Turkey is applying to join BRICS. Unexpectedly, the bloc, I repeat, is not anti-American, not anti-Western in any case, despite attempts to portray it as such. But at the very least, the organization is not friendly. No country that is part of NATO or the European Union. Other Western blocs do not belong to the BRICS organization. Indeed, Turkey wanted to. And when RDN arrives, of course, there are no coincidences. This is a blow to him, primarily to his reputation. It demonstrates his inability as the president of the country and the intelligence services under his command to ensure security. And the fact that this terrorist attack was timed with Erdogan's departure is clear. It was known he would arrive in Kazan, and this attack was carried out precisely for that reason. It did not happen in any way just at some unclear location. This is the largest defense industry conglomerate in Turkey, Turkish Aerospace Industries, or TAI for short. It is located approximately 50 kilometers from Ankara. A terrorist attack was conducted against it. Gunshots and explosions were heard. Well, then the most interesting part actually begins. The authorities, of course, accused someone. So far, it is unknown. No one has taken responsibility. The authorities immediately announced that they believe it was likely Kurdish separatists who committed this crime. However, there are other versions as well. Since this enterprise primarily produces drones, including those that participated in the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, it also manufactures the main product of Turkey's military aviation industry. This is the Turkish 5th-generation fighter jet Khan. This is what it is called, Khan, named after the company that produces it. It also manufactures 4 multi-purpose combat helicopters and 4 types of UAVs with high payload capacity. There are no Bayraktars here. It is produced by the Baykarna company, another corporation, not this one. Nevertheless, as expected, specialists took notice. The fact that Turkish aerospace industries has undoubtedly become a target for attack is likely due to its particular value to Turkey, especially to Erdogan. It is the largest high-tech enterprise, the largest conglomerate that produces first and foremost the key 5th-generation fighter Khan, which is currently in the process of refinement. Turkish Aerospace is also actively collaborating with other Western corporations, including British BAE Systems and American Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics. It is clearly and undoubtedly evident that if these were representatives, let's say, of the Kurdish separatists, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which, according to the Turkish authorities, may indeed be behind this attack, was in fact essentially nurtured and raised on the milk of the Soviet Union's State Security Committee. It was with Kurdish organizations that Soviet intelligence services, the KGB, and later Russian intelligence services, the GRU and FSB, maintained the closest contacts. The second version suggests that, in addition to the Kurds, representatives of the Islamic State and other potential actors could have carried out the attack, as Turkey had previously crossed paths with them, believing that Turkey dealt a decisive blow to the Islamic State during the civil war in Syria. And therefore, indeed, the Islamic State is, as a result, a special shield for Erdogan. However, if we assume the version that Kurdish separatists are behind this, I remind you that they were previously funded and existed solely on the money from the USSR and later the Russian Federation. The reason why Putin can deliver such a stab in the back to Erdogan, who is receiving guests, is that this is the logic of a terrorist. It is absolutely obvious, as this is how they always act. And this will raise the least amount of suspicion. How can Putin be behind this terrorist act if he is hosting Erdogan? I mean, Erdogan comes to him, and at the same time some terrorists possibly linked to Russian special services are carrying out this act. However, an important event occurred the day before, regarding Ankara's changes to customs systems aimed at blocking the export to Russia of more than 40 key types of military products. Of course, under pressure from the Americans and other Western allies. Washington previously warned Ankara of the consequences if it does not cease trade with the Russians. As a result, more than 40 names critical to the Russian defense industry were completely blocked, which it used to effectively bypass various sanctions and restrictions on obtaining products. In total, earlier the European Union also did the same by blocking the corresponding trade. The discussion primarily concerns sensitive materials such as microchips, which are used in missile production as well as in armored vehicles like tanks and similar equipment. The remote control system is also mentioned. A total of about 50 high-priority items of Western military production. This includes equipment, machinery, and technology crucial for defense. The production of the USA, the UK, EU countries, and Japan. This includes advanced electronics, such as processors, memory cards, machines, and other equipment. And here we come to the version that Putin could have done this. He is completely, absolutely in the logic of a terrorist who has completely lost his mind, yet is cynical and will stop at nothing. Let us remember that at one time Russian attack aircraft entered Turkish territory during the civil war in Syria, where they were successfully shot down by Turkish aviation. At that time, Putin also threatened sanctions, banned Russians from Turkish resorts, and stopped purchasing their agricultural products. But in the end, he wiped himself off and returned. But he didn't forget anything. He didn't forgive anything. This is not that character. This is a bloody maniac who forgets nothing. And that's why, I will repeat once more, besides the Islamic State, the second version is, of course, Russia itself. In short, this is what revenge looks like. And both the Turkish intelligence services and Western intelligence agencies will be investigating now. It's interesting to see what they will dig up. Well, we will, of course, be watching this closely. Thank you, friends, for watching this video. Take care of yourselves, subscribe to the channel, like, share, and comment on the broadcast. Don't forget to recommend the video to your friends and acquaintances. We have not much left to reach 1 million subscribers. Let's push harder. As they say, roughly around 20,000 approximately as of this moment. Take care. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the armed forces of Ukraine. Glory to the Ukrainian special forces. You were with Major of the Ukrainian Army Taras Berezovets. Until we meet again, friends. Bye-bye.